This segment is brought to you by the Southern Cigar Festival. The Southern Cigar Festival is a world-class cigar event coming to Atlanta, Georgia. Saturday, June 6th from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m., the Verizon Amphitheater at Encore Park, home to the largest cigar event in the state of Georgia. Guests will receive premium cigars from 35 cigar manufacturers hailing from 9 different countries. There will also be personal guest appearances from many of the big-name cigar makers and industry personalities. In addition, the Southern Cigar Festival will feature prizes, raffles, live music, and plenty of food and drink. Be sure to check out the limited VIP tickets and even more limited private VIP box packages, which include early access to the event and plenty of additional amenities. Tickets are on sale now through Ticketmaster and on the event website at southerncigarfestival.com. Tickets are going fast, so get yours today. And by Mr. J's Havana Smoke Shop, located here in Rhode Island. They have an outstanding selection of premium handmade cigars. And by the Havana Cigar Club, located in Warwick, Rhode Island. It's a great place to enjoy a drink and a cigar. Stogie Geeks listeners can find a $5 off coupon on our website by clicking the HCC logo. And by Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pele Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offers the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Azan Cigars, Naya, and Baracoa. Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all the tobacco grown in their farms and rolled in the factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure the progressive flavor in each cigar. Progressive flavor construction is an old Cuban technique, where the cigar is designed to increase in strength as the cigar is smoked. This technique, combined with premium tobacco, provides a perfectly balanced and pleasurable smoking experience. Roberto P. Duran invites you to make their premium your standard. Welcome back, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show. We're back here with Jason Holley from Viva Republica. Jason, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
And Will is on the line with us, of course. So why don't we start with Jason? Jason, how did you get your start in the cigar industry?
I think every time someone asks me, I tell the story a little bit differently just to keep it interesting. But
There you go.
Basically, I kind of got in a weird way. I mean, I'd started smoking cigars pretty much probably prior to even being legally allowed to. But then I was involved in a lot of political work, doing campaigns for mostly Democratic candidates, and that was my background, what I went to school for, government, and I had a ton of camera equipment around, and I bought the Red camera right when it first came out. It was like $40,000 camera that shot 4K, back in like 2006, and I got roped into going to the Dominican Republic to associate produce a movie called La Soga that was shot pretty much all around Santiago, some of the towns around it, and while I was down there, got to visit La Aurora, which kind of fortuitous. That's where it ended up working out, and got to meet a couple other people. And when I came back, from that trip, one of the first things I did, the store that I'd always hung out and shopped at was an elderly couple, and they wanted to sell. And I had an opportunity to buy the store and kind of transition into doing more cigar related stuff, and use that as a big basis or an education on how to start a brand. Because I always wanted to start a brand, but I didn't want to just go in it and make a bunch of mistakes that I can make while I'm on the retail side, and learn a little bit about how products come to market, what consumers are looking at, watching them walk around the store and seeing how they evaluate products. It definitely gives me a little bit of a background and an edge. And there's a lot of other guys in the industry that have been come from retail backgrounds that have been very successful. Jonathan and Marvin started out as retailers. Pete worked at the Grand Havana Room. Countless amount of people. Dion from Illusion, just fantastic people in the industry that started out with a retail background. Kirk Kendall, I could just keep on going, naming Jay Grotto, he just named all these different brands that had a retail background before they became a brand, and I wanted to have a little bit of that education.
One thing you've done, Jason, though, and there are others who've done it, and I don't want to say unique, but you're in that factory a lot. And I'm not knocking the retailers who aren't in the factory, but I think it's one thing that's really given you an advantage over maybe some others is you spend an enormous amount of time in the factory.
The relationship with Miami, it only enhanced it even further because we have a mutual interest, obviously, in seeing La Aurora succeed in the U.S. market. To me, it's in terms of tradition, it doesn't get any better than the 112 years that the factory has, and just being down there, I learn something new every trip I take down there, whether it's from Guillermo or Manuel Noah, Gustavo. We have a bunch of people down there, great people that have been really helpful to me and have allowed me to make the factory my home. And I don't think I'd be able to do this at some other factories because, it's still an art and there's a lot of secrets in this industry and there's a lot of trade secrets. And, especially the Cuban, a lot of the guys that have Cuban roots, even more so than anything, have this, air of secrecy that they like to have in the way that they blend or the way that they process their tobacco. So working with Guillermo, who is very open-minded and, the family's been doing it now for 4 or 5 generations, it allowed me to be able to get in and get my hands dirty and not just simply, and I'm not knocking the people that don't go down. There's really great factories that make great cigars without you having to go down and do some of the legwork yourself. But La Aurora afforded me an opportunity that I think is unique in that I'm allowed to go down and blend my own stuff. As soon as I get there, can walk around the factory, go and pick tobacco out of the inventory and start working on projects.
So what was your vision in terms of you formed Viva Republica, and I believe it was 2012 was when you launched. What was your vision for your company?
Well, I mean, I've always enjoyed cigar brands that had a little bit of story to go along with the cigar. I think that the industry, it flourishes when there's those kind of products out there that have a little more meaning to them than just a simple product. I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of other industries. And the Viva Republica, long live the Republic, the Spanish translation, came from that political background that I had, always, involved in government. And, when I got down to the Dominican Republic, that time when we were filming the movie, there was a presidential election going on. There was a lot of imagery down there that really motivated, kind of set the groundwork for what the brand would be. And when I came out with it, I didn't have any kind of predisposed notions. The one thing I don't do and I'm not saying other people do it. I know I blend. I don't create a brand and then a cigar. I create a cigar and then find a brand to fit it, or a name. I don't, reverse engineer it the other way. I kind of, sometimes I'll work on something. I'll come up with for just an example, I have a Candela blend done right now that I just don't have a brand done yet to come out, but it will be. But I get the cigar done first and then worry about the packaging and the name and, everything else afterwards. So I just never really had a preconceived idea as to what, like a 10-year plan or even a 5-year plan. Just kind of when it feels right, go with it. I'm in this as a boutique manufacturer. I'm not, that word gets used a lot, but I'm not trying to be, one of the 800-pound gorillas in the industry. I'd be very happy, just growing slowly and organically, finding customers that connect with the brand and developing it that way.
Great. So you started out with the Rapture.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little about that? I found that to be a very traditional type of cigar that came out of La Aurora. Maybe you could give your perspectives on that cigar.
When I first started actually working on blends down there, Jose Blanco was still, with La Aurora. He's someone I credit a lot with really helping me get started and giving me, some of that base knowledge and just motivation. One of the greatest people in the industry. And, I'm glad to see him with his own project now doing well. He's just a great person, someone I can't thank enough for, everything he's done. And, it was right around the time when the Guillermo Leon line came out, which is still one of my favorite cigars ever made. And I love the Ecuadorian HVA wrapper that Guillermo used on the Guillermo Leon. So I used a similar, same seed varietal, just a little different priming than he has on his. And, it's ultra complex in terms of the tobaccos that are used. I try and mix things up a little. And the one thing I'm trying to stay away from, and I try to stay away from when even, creating Rapture, which is the first line, this idea that a lot of customers have that just because the cigar is made in the Dominican Republic, that doesn't necessarily make it a Dominican cigar in terms of the way it's going to smoke. We have access to tobacco from 16 different countries that's already processed and ready to go there. So, we're not pigeonholed to just using Dominican tobacco like factories were 20 years ago. If a cigar came from the Dominican Republic 20 years ago, it probably had a Connecticut wrapper from the United States and a bunch of Dominican filler. And now, with the variety of tobacco that's out there, and kind of sort of globalization taking place where different commodities are now found in different countries. We're able to create different cigars than we would have 20 years ago, based on having a lot of that different tobacco that we can blend in the Dominican Republic. So when I started out to do Rapture, the idea was just create a more traditional cigar. I wanted it to be complex, medium plus in body, and followed it up with the Maduro version, which is the same exact filler and binder components with tweaks in some of the primings, and a San Andres Maduro wrapper. So that was the first release we did back in 2012.
And what are we smoking tonight, Will?
Well, yeah, so that's what I was going to kind of go to. It seemed so. You came out with the Rapture, then you came out with Guerrilla Warfare, which was your Sumatra. Great cigar.
Yep.
And then there was this change that I noticed you did around last year, where you went from, I considered those three cigars a little more traditional, and then you released Propaganda, which is my favorite cigar that you've released to date. It's a fantastic blend, and it's got a very unique wrapper on it. Why don't you tell us a little about the Propaganda?
Sure. The good thing about working with a company like La Aurora is there's never a scarcity for tobacco. Working with Guillermo, he has the capital and the facility to have 10 years of tobacco on property. So we have more than enough, and we have a lot of unique tobacco. And, Guillermo, as you might know, has a different, palate than some other people. And he tends to blend a little bit differently than I do. And there was this wrapper that just didn't work for any of his projects that we used for the Propaganda project that he had a bunch of, and it was fantastic. And again, it's another case of where the cigar was born and then the brand was made to fit around it. And I don't know that anyone's ever really picked up on it per se yet, but the idea behind Propaganda was, the box has a big lightning bolt on it. The band, looks very aggressive packaging wise, kind of daunting kind of thing. And the whole idea behind it was everyone assumed that it's going to be a really strong cigar. And it's kind of getting into that thing where a lot of times people's palates, I think, are sometimes clouded, by, what the manufacturer tells them it's supposed to be like. And my thing is, in the industry, what some person thinks is mild, someone else might think is medium, the next person might think is full-bodied. It's definitely subjective like art, and there's no one size fits all. And the idea behind that was just kind of showing that through the brand that all in the end is people should smoke what they like. They don't have to worry about who makes it really, how much it costs, all those other, kind of things that sort of cloud the consumer. And the reality is just making a cigar that people can enjoy. Wanted it to be a little bit different than the other stuff that was already in the portfolio so that we can start opening doors to, more consumers that want to try different things. And it sort of fit with the branding that we're doing, which is a trademark slogan we just did, which is where the wild things grow. And I just don't want to ever be held in between the lines of tradition. And I like, to try and balance out tradition with some innovation and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, and this wrapper, it's called the Brazilian Magico, right?
Mágico Cubano, yeah.
Mágico. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, it's something, like I said, I've not had anything like it, and it was just real. It added a real unique spin to this cigar. I haven't heard of anyone else working with it before.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. Again, that's the good thing about Guillermo is he's not afraid to buy up tobacco without having a project in mind. He doesn't mind sitting on it. He knows that it's only going to go up in value, and it's a good investment. And they run such a good factory down there. The one thing that I can't talk enough about La Aurora is probably people don't understand that in terms of factories, they're so modernized in terms of the quality control that they run. Every cigar is draw tested on the Draw Masters. Just the way everything is done there is done very, very well because of the amount of business they do there, not only for their own lines, but private label and some other stuff that they make for mass market. They just have a tremendous operation that allows us to go down and tinker, do our blends, and then that's it. I don't have to worry about anything else. They send great cigars, true to the blend that was done, in great shape, right to Miami, and we take it from there.
Yeah, outstanding. Now the band has a really interesting color scheme on it, which I just like, the black and the gold and the white on that. And it just has, I notice how you put every country on here that's in this blend, which is really spectacular there, which I kind of liked on that.
Yeah, no, and the color scheme, it was a little bit of an homage, and I told the person that it was an homage to the day we released it. The cigar that I've been before I was a manufacturer, even when I was a retailer, that I've always been captivated by has been Opus X by Carlito Fuente. And, the color scheme is a tribute to Opus. Carlito has been an outstanding mentor, a friend. He hosted my wedding at Chateau de la Fuente a couple of years ago. And
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That must have been a lot of fun.
Let's just put it this way. The cigar buffet that he put out was pretty spectacular.
I bet.
There was nothing left at the end of the night, and there was only 40 people there. So everyone went home happy because I can't say enough how much of he's a role model to me and an influence in a way that it's hard to describe. It's just someone that I have that I know is always there to bounce things off of and talk to. And it's not about blending or things like that. It's not about competition, life in general, and just someone who I know has been through the ups and downs of the industry from day one, family history going back 100 years, and really understands. I can't explain how much of a tremendous, just not only blender, but marketer Carlito is. Everything he's done, I just look up to and see as being fantastic because in reality, I think Opus, at the time of the boom and it came out and everything like that, it did a lot for the industry. And I think it's still, to this day, one of my, in my top 3 cigars of all time.
Yeah, and actually, that was a leading question with the colors because I remember you told me that story at IPCPR when you had me try to guess it, and I couldn't guess it. And then when you said it, it was just so obvious. With that, it was a great tribute, I thought, with that.
Yeah, and I mean it's tough because again, I don't want to copy anything or do anything like that. That's his thing, but it was a subtle way to throw a little tribute out there, to someone who I think has had a lot of influence in how I, see the industry.
Yeah, and he's, Fuentes, they're like ambassadors to the industry as a whole. So that's a real great thing. I think Paul's gonna go renew his vows now down and see if he can get a wedding down.
Will, that's a really good idea. I like that. So, Jason, along the lines of the band, you've got I'm in computer security, so I call it the anonymous mask, right?
The Guy Fawkes.
The Guy Fawkes mask, yeah. That's been adopted by the hacker group Anonymous.
Sure.
But yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I mean, I was looking for imagery that resembled different types of propaganda. And the idea, the Guy Fawkes being used by Anonymous is one time, used in the movie. Well, I can't even think of the movie now. Natalie Portman.
Yeah, I saw that.
V for Vendetta.
Yes.
So, the whole idea behind it was just using some kind of imagery that could go along, it would be captivating. It's relevant even now as much as it was back, and I would be a fool if I said the era.
It was a few years ago, yeah.
But I'm saying, I think that was back in the 1600s or 1700s or something. It was a crazy long time ago. That whole thing was born out of, but still relevant today, a couple hundred years later. The idea that this propaganda is ever present every day in our lives in different forms, whether it's through media, whether it's through all different things. And I'm not saying that in a conspiracy theorist kind of way. It's a function of what our society has become through the advent of technology and mass media. And there's a lot of propaganda that's thrown at us every single day. And it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek way to highlight that with the cigar brand.
No, it was excellent. It was excellent. Now, you kind of was talking about the theme of innovation, and then kind of taking now into 2014, you really took innovation, I think, to a different level. I mean, there were a couple of limited releases that you came out with that were fun releases, really good cigars, and the two I'm talking about are the Jailbreak and the Viva Republica Culebra. So let's start with the Jailbreak, because I thought that was just something totally out of the box. Sounded gimmicky, putting a cigar inside a cigar, but I thought it turned out to be something fantastic and fun. How did that project come about?
That's something I actually started working on. One of the first things I actually worked on as a concept, a few years ago, and it worked out well. It was something that it could have went either way. I mean, it didn't necessarily have to work. It's tremendously difficult to make those cigars, and to keep it at the price point we got it out at a $12 MSRP. We wanted to keep it so that it was accessible to the masses, but then also, had to respect the fact that it takes a significant amount of time and labor to make that cigar compared to a traditional cigar. Because we were actually rolling the Petit Lancero, aging it, and then reincorporating into the 6x58. So there's a lot of work that goes into it.
So Jason, it truly is a cigar within a cigar. Is that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is that what you're describing?
Absolutely. It's not a marketing thing. We challenged anyone that wanted to go ahead. If you feel like wasting $12, go ahead, take an X-Acto knife to it and see if we're lying. But we put every single one that was rolled had the aged Petit Lancero rolled inside of it. And if that wasn't placed perfectly down the center, you're going to have some serious issues because you have an inside wrapper that's burning, combusting faster than the binder and filler on that cigar. So it had to be done well, and we used our Preferido rollers that are down at the factory, worked on this project because they're the best rollers we have at the factory, and it came out really well.
Did you have to choose certain tobaccos in the cigar on the inside and the cigar on the outside to get it to combust? I'm assuming you had to really be selective as to which tobaccos would combust at an even rate, correct?
Yeah, and Ligero placement had to go in the inner chamber. Mm-hmm. So that the inner side, if you end up smoking, that's going to smoke pretty strong because it contains the bulk of the Ligero on the cigar. Because Ligero burns slowest, it's got to be placed down the center. Otherwise, you're going to have a cigar that doesn't burn evenly. So we had to use that in the inner piece in the Petit Lancero. Because if we used Ligero outside of the center chamber, it would cause the cigar to kind of tunnel or canoe, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also you get those weird things where you're smoking a cigar and then a quarter inch or a half an inch of the way down, it starts to burn.
Yep.
But the burn line is, further towards the other end of the cigar, which is kind of weird. And that just, I don't know if it affects the flavor or not, but getting a cigar to burn evenly is certainly, it plays the whole experience of smoking a cigar. So I commend you for making that cigar within a cigar, dude. That's not an easy thing to do.
No, and it's something that, was originally done as a tribute for my stepfather that retired from the State Correctional Institute in Pennsylvania recently. But it's something that I'm going to probably use as a vehicle for collaboration in the near future. It allows me to work with another factory without working with another factory. I can easily have another manufacturer produce the centerpiece, and we produce the wraparound material, which would be basically two different factories together in one cigar. It's something that no one's really done before.
Wow. So there's going to be more kind of cigar within a cigar.
It'll be a limited edition. Again, it's not something that'll be an everyday thing. It wasn't meant to ever become commonplace. And it wasn't, the other side of that, it wasn't done to be a novelty. It was really a test to see, can it be done? Will it smoke well? And I didn't want to be the only, the jury on that. I wanted people to be able to try it. So it worked well in terms of what we wanted to do with the limited release.
Yeah, like I said, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a lot of flavor. I mean, so obviously you were getting some of that inner wrapper, and the flavor was there with that cigar. It was a really fun cigar to smoke. Did the factory, when you went to them with that, did they look at you with three heads on basically?
Oh, well,
want to do what?
When you go to a guy whose family invented Dominican cigars, and that's not like a marketing thing. Like the Leones invented Dominican cigars in 1903. They were the first factory in the country. And you go to him and tell him that you want to put a cigar inside another cigar, and you're gonna get a funny look from the big cat. I mean, he's gonna look at you like you're crazy. But in the end, the good thing about Guillermo is, again, I don't know how to explain it. He's for how much tradition he has, he's definitely willing to try unique things to see if they work. He's not going to stand in the way of progress in terms of allowing that 112-year experience in the family to shut you down and say, no, you're not making that. Or no, even when we did Guerrilla Warfare, Guillermo's always smoked the stuff that we do to give me his input. And it just wasn't something at first that hit his palate because it's a high amount of nicotine. And it's not what he typically smokes, but he was supportive of it. He knew that there's a market for it and there's people that are going to enjoy it. And I can't say enough that I've been able and fortunate enough to surround myself between the Leones, La Aurora, and the Mirandas, Jason Wood. I've got such a great team that I don't even take credit for anything because it's all those people, the reps that we have out on the road. It's all that. It's not just me. And I never want it to be looked at as just me. I'm one person within a group of 55, 60 people. And then you add in all the rollers and we're talking hundreds of people at our factory. And that's it.
Jason, from what I've heard about Guillermo, he has that very keen sense for not just tobacco, but for business as well. So it kind of doesn't surprise me that he embraced some of your ideas. Is that your kind of assessment as well?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to say it. I mean, the Leone family isn't only in tobacco. Obviously everyone knows, well, most people know the Presidente connection, Banco Leone, a variety of enterprises they have. So he has a solid, he's not just a tobacco guy. He's had a bunch of other enterprises that he has. But when it comes to tobacco, you're not going to get one by him. I've tried to bring things into him and, fool him and tell him it was something it wasn't. And he'll just call you right out by looking at the wrap. I mean, his knowledge of tobacco is scary sometimes.
It seems like his knowledge of business is pretty scary too. That's a pretty cool combination to have for a business partner, or, you know, or
You
a
don't want to
supporter.
negotiate. You don't want to negotiate with him.
That's pretty funny.
So the other project that I also loved was the Calabra. Three different blends in one Calabra.
Yep.
I had a ball smoking that thing.
Had that been done before? Had there been 3 different blends in a Calibra before?
I think I don't know. I'm maybe Regius, maybe.
Yeah, not very many though, Jason.
No, I think Akil may have. Dion's, I think, was all 3 were the same blend. The Old Man and the Sea. I'm just trying to think of other Calibras that have come out in the last couple of years.
Davidoff has traditionally been all the same blend.
Yeah, but I do think Regius may have had multiple different blends in their pieces. Akil does a fantastic job, and I think for some reason that he did. I don't think that I created that. It was just an idea. The reason I did it was it worked perfectly. We had 3 core lines out at the time. Guerrilla, Rapture, Propaganda, and Propaganda didn't make it into the cut because I decided to use the Rapture Natural and the Rapture Maduro. But there definitely will be a Culebra in another year or so that'll involve Propaganda and some of the newer stuff we're going to be unveiling in the next couple months.
Wow, so that's exciting. I'm pumped on that. And it kind of what I loved about that Calabra is, again, it kind of the innovation, the 3 different blends. Maybe you weren't the first, but not a common thing with those 3 traditional core lines that you had. I just thought it was a real good thing. And I actually, the Rapture Natural just was fantastic in that Calabra. That was my favorite of the 3.
Cool. No, I think the idea was allow people with buying one cigar, even though it's a 3-piece Calabra, to experience 3 different lines. And I think gave exposure to those other lines, and it worked out well.
Well, what's great about the Calibra, right, is like you said, it's buying one cigar. And then I think that the kind of marketing and sales point to it is to tell the history behind the Calibra on how the rollers used to, roll those and say, hey, I'm bringing home one cigar, but it was really 3. And the other thing about that is it's amazing that they actually smoke, right? Like when you unwrap and pull the 3 different cigars out, you're like, there's no way this twisted thing is going to actually smoke, and then it does. And then I like to share those with my friends. Like when I get a Calibra, I like to, smoke it with a couple of my friends and kind of share the different experiences and talk about them, and it doesn't sit in the ashtray the right way. And I think it's a really fun thing to do, and I love when manufacturers come out with that particular style.
Yep. Yeah, we're Stogie geeks here.
That's
so
that is a very Stogie geek thing.
It's not just a name. I like that.
Yeah.
we really live by it.
We really do.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing you had going on, Jason, is in the middle of building a company, you actually opted to change your distribution model, and you brought distribution under Miami Cigar. But it was kind of unique because you didn't just bring the distribution in. You actually, as you mentioned, you really became part of the team. Why don't you talk about a little what your role is with Miami Cigar?
What it basically is Jason, who's Nestor's son-in-law, took over the company a few years ago and brought in an influx of youth and drive. And it's not that Nestor, has slowed down, because that guy is crazy what he does at his age. I mean, he outlasts me by hours when it comes time to hanging out at night. I'm asleep by 10:30.
Me too. He's done that with me too.
He's just getting going around midnight. I mean, and if you get him playing dominoes anywhere, just forget about the rest of the day, because you're not leaving. But I mean, Jason came in and brought a different background that I think started leading Miami into the new age. As you saw, the Nestor Miranda collection rebrand that Jason spearheaded, amazing. It's done phenomenally well for the company. And the repackage on it, everyone was ultra receptive, turn into the Nestor Miranda collection. There's some new stuff going to be coming out there that I think people are going to go nuts for, some limited stuff and things there that Jason's been working on with Nestor. And I got involved and started really getting out on the road, going to see accounts. And, while I'm there, I'm not just doing Viva stuff, just talking about the company as a whole, seeing what we could do to improve our standing with different stores, and just getting out doing events and representing the company. That's it. I mean, it's I'm there for whatever is needed. Different times I do different things based on what the need is. As we're going into the trade show, there's going to be a lot of stuff that has to be done for that, and I'll just pick up and I'm ready to whatever Jason throws, I'll get an email from him, putting me onto something, and I'll just get it done. It's not really the good thing about the company is it's big enough that we have a great presence. We have a full complement of reps across the country, but we're small enough that we're not a corporate structure where there's not a lot of layers of red tape. We can make decisions really quick with one phone call. Jason makes the decision and we roll. So we're very navigable, out in that sea of companies where there's some companies where there's they have to have meetings about meetings. The bigger corporations where things take a year to get done, we can get a project done in a couple of weeks because we can move a lot quicker.
No, that's all. I live that. I know.
Yeah, we totally can relate to that.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few times. You obviously have some new. Are there any new projects you could talk about tonight? Maybe give us a preview of what you have coming up in the next few months.
There's going to definitely be some line extensions between Rapture, Propaganda, and Guerrilla Warfare. Guerrilla Warfare. I've had a ton of people that ask for Guerrilla Warfare in a bigger Vitola, and it's just not possible. I've blended the Guerrilla Warfare as big as a 6x60 to try, and it's just not the same cigar. It's not that it's bad, but it's not anything like. It's the kind of cigar that anything out of that ring gauge in that 40, 42, 44, 46 ring gauge, you get up into the traditional, the Robustos, the Toros, the Churchills, and it just loses a lot of its nuances that it has in the smaller Vitola. So I think looks like we'll be doing a Lancero in the Guerrilla Warfare for the trade show. There's going to be another follow-up to Guerrilla Warfare, similarly packaged, with the same color, not the same color scheme, same boxes, different color scheme, totally different blend, same price point, called Advanced Warfare. So we're going to expand the Guerrilla Warfare franchise, like to call it, into Advanced Warfare now, which is use the same wrapper, but it's not the same cigar at all. Completely different cigar with the same wrapper. Definitely a little bit more kick to it, and people should. I think people will enjoy it.
And that's the Lancero, Jason, or
no? So Guerrilla Warfare is going to add the Lancero to it,
mm-hmm.
and then Advanced Warfare is going to debut with the two original sizes of Guerrilla Warfare, which is the Petite Corona and the Corona.
And those are going to be different blends?
Yes. So Advanced Warfare will be same wrapper, totally different binder and filler, smokes like a totally different cigar, and at the same price point. So it's $4 MSRP on the Petite Corona and $5.50 on the Corona.
That's very reasonably priced. A lot of manufacturers will go the other way and change the wrapper. What prompted the decision to change Did you change the binder and filler, or just the filler?
Binder and filler. It's the binder on this one's Connecticut broadleaf. On the Advanced Warfare will be, and it's different. I don't have any preconceived notions of what you should do, and it allows me to explore and not be tied down to tradition. Tradition's like a double-edged sword. I mean, it's great to have to know where everything's been, but at times it could keep you from seeing where you could be. And my thing has been, don't get jaded by anything else. I'm not going to be one of those people that jumps on the trends. Big ring gauge cigars, for example. There's a lot of people that love them. I don't like them, so I'm probably not going to make big ring gauge cigars just because I'm going to have a hard time selling people something that I can't get behind myself. So I think the brand is going to be a representation of my own personal palate. I'm not necessarily going to go the way of trying to appeal to the masses. It's not my personality. And I understand that, a brand can't be one size fits all. So I kind of picked my niche for people that want to explore a little bit, kind of take a journey towards trying things a little bit differently. I'm working on a bunch of different stuff that, I could talk a little bit about. We've been working on growing hydroponic tobacco. To see, the differences. I've been
hold on. What do you mean by hydroponic tobacco? Is that like grown in water, like they do?
Yeah.
When you say hydroponic, I think of all the ridiculous things going on with marijuana, right? Because people can grow it legally in a lot of the states, right?
Yeah, Pennsylvania is not one of them. Let's be clear about that. But no, it is. I'm using the techniques that have typically been associated with the cultivation of that forbidden plant. But for tobacco. And the only reason I'm doing it is Pennsylvania, where I live, we had snow today.
Mm-hmm.
We're like 10 days away from the Kentucky Derby, and we had snowfall today. So the growing season here is really short.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Pennsylvania is known for the broadleaf that's grown down in the Lancaster region mostly by the Amish, and the cigarette tobacco that they grow Lancaster Leaf down in that part of the state grows a tremendous amount of tobacco that ends up in short filler cigars. But I wanted to set up something. I have an office space where I was able to set up my own grow laboratory, so I can take seed varietals, plant them, test different ways of fertilization, test different ways of irrigate, to see if overwatering it causes the plant to react differently. All these different things in almost like a laboratory setting that I could do right here in Pennsylvania, and then take the knowledge that I gleaned from that and plant the crop in the Dominican Republic or Nicaragua, wherever it needs to be planted, and mimic what we did in the laboratory.
That's awesome.
That's something I have not heard of,
right,
Jason. I haven't heard of anyone growing tobacco hydroponically. That's really cool.
It's something that'll definitely, it'll probably, find its way into a limited edition soon, with some of the results we've had. The problem is, the yields are absolutely minuscule.
Yeah, I was going to say to grow it hydroponically, right? Like your yield is much lower than growing it in soil because you don't have a gigantic field to grow all that stuff in, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we have 100 plants done in a particular varietal, we're going to only yield about 1,600 leaves. And of that, what percentage? Lucky if 10% can be used as wrapper. So it's definitely got to be done more as a filler component and just as a way to try. Again, I'm trying to make sure that people understand that it's easy to see some of the things that I'm doing or plan on doing and perceive them as being, either a novelty or a marketing thing. The reality is it's just really what Viva is. It's not, the idea is not to go out and get a bunch of people to think that we're not trying to turn the cigar world on its head. We're not trying to reinvent it, but it is an industry that I think with new ideas and with new people coming into it can evolve into something differently, because if you're not changing, my thing I always say is if you're not changing, you're pretty much dying. So the evolutionary process is important.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of in this no-win situation because, I hear all the time, people say that's gimmicky. Not necessarily you, but when someone does something that's out of the box, it's gimmicky. But on the other hand, they'll say that's the same thing as someone else did then. So it's kind of like this no-win situation you're in. Why not just let's see what else could happen here? That's what I say. That's what makes it fresh and fun in my book.
Yeah. No, if you're not, this is the thing about it. If the moment that this becomes a job for me, I'm probably not going to do it anymore. I mean, I enjoy doing it because it's such a contrast from what I was doing when I was doing political work, which is ultra black and white. You have to color within the lines. You're under a microscope. Every little move is analyzed and reactions made to it. Whereas the cigar industry is definitely a little bit more laid back, and we can have fun with it. And the idea that these preconceived notions that are out there can be tested from time to time, I like it. I'm definitely an antagonist. That's my role I like to play. I don't like to leave anything the way it is. I try and challenge it and see if there's a way to do it differently. Most of the time I'm probably wrong and it's not going to work, but there's going to be the times that it works, and it's something that I want to share with people.
That's awesome.
Will, did you have closing questions for Jason?
I got one more. And you mentioned this earlier. So, Jason, you mentioned something about you working with Candela. Is that something that's in the works, or is it just kind of something you're playing with right now?
Oh, that's something I definitely want to do. I mean, Candela at one time, you go back 25, 30 years ago, there was a pretty serious presence of Candela in the traditional, handmade cigar market. And it's, I've smoked some fantastic Candelas recently. Dion did an amazing one with the Illusione Candela. Skip Martin and Mike Rosales with the Fomorian that they did. There's some really good Candelas out there. And, Guillermo has a ton of Candela available that's been, well-aged and processed. And it's something that I wanted to do. And, to me, the idea that, creating a full-bodied Candela is something I wanted to do for a while. So I've been working on it for about a year. And I think it'll be ready, trying not to tie it in, to get too, insane with tying these releases to holidays so we get pigeonholed. So, but it's something that'll definitely be coming out in the next, 6 months or so.
Nice.
I look forward to that. I like Candelas with a stronger, binder filler to kind of offset the Candela wrapper. I think that's a nice mixture.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So, Jason, are you ready to play 5 questions with the Stogie Geeks?
Oh, I'm ready.
3 words to describe yourself.
Indecisive, optimistic, and analytical.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Yeah, big knife, like a really big knife, like Crocodile Dundee style knife.
Nice.
There you go.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Me by me.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
Sometimes I like to go third, but in this particular situation, I'll go second.
I think that's the first person to ever say third.
I think so too.
That's pretty good, Jason. Jason, choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Oh, wow.
That's
Where
the
you guys
tough
come
one.
up?
I know that is the tough one.
Do you have a little book that you pull these from? Like, where do you get these?
Various sources. At this point, I've been doing this 10 years, and I don't even remember where a lot of the 5 questions came from. I can tell you where some of them came from. I stole some of them from TV. I stole some of them from the internet, and other ones just kind of evolved over time. This one I definitely stole from the internet, and I thought it was good, so I included it in there.
All right. Celebrities. I mean, you're right. This one chronologically it probably wouldn't work. Dan Bilzerian as the paterfamilias, the father role, and Hillary Clinton as the mother.
There you go.
Because that duality there would just be wild.
I tell you what, the answers to that question are some of the most awesome. It's really cool.
Really
the number of we've had guests answer everything from Kim Kardashian and Kanye West all the way to Einstein and Madame Curie. So yeah, and everywhere in between. So it's really cool. Jason, thank you very much for appearing on the Stogie Geek Show. It's great to talk with you.
Thank you guys for having me. You guys have a great product here, and I want to keep seeing you guys move forward and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you as well. And I'm really
so
enjoying your cigar. In fact, Will sent me 2, and I'm really glad he did because I can't wait to try this one again as well. I'm really enjoying it. So nice job,
this
Jason.
Is a special cigar.
Yeah.
It's a really special cigar.
I appreciate the support, guys. I'd love to be back on sometime. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll run into you soon.
Excellent.
I'll see you in New Orleans.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to take a short break, come back, and talk about our Stogies of the Week.